Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he'll meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington this Friday, where the two would discuss Ukraine's air defense and long-range strike capabilities. Zelensky said he'd shared with Trump a vision of how many Tomahawk missiles Ukraine needs for its war effort against Russia. Now, what exactly are those Tomahawks? Let's have a look.
Tomahawk cruise missiles were first introduced into service in the 1980s. They can carry a 500-kilogram payload and are usually fired from ships. They can fly at low altitudes to avoid missile defenses, can be reprogrammed in flight, and can even loiter over their targets before striking. Tomahawks could make a difference for Ukraine. Tactical missiles like British Storm Shadows, German Taurus, and US-made ATACMS have ranges of a few hundred kilometers. Tomahawks can reach targets up to 2,500 kilometers away, putting Moscow easily in reach, as well as the Olyenya Air Base, one of the main launch sites for Russian missile attacks against Ukraine. European NATO member countries would have to buy the Tomahawks from the US and transfer them to Ukraine. That's raised fears that Europe could be dragged further into the conflict.
To shed more light on this, I'm joined now by political scientist Mikhail Alekseev, professor at San Diego State University. Thank you for joining us now. President Zelensky seems confident he will get these Tomahawks. Will he get them?
Well, it is a very serious possibility. Clearly, the Trump administration would first try to use the probability of Tomahawk missiles getting to Ukraine as a negotiating tactic, as a way to put pressure on Moscow to make concessions to its maximalist demands and negotiate seriously with Ukraine, perhaps agree to the ceasefire first and then negotiate. But barring that, I believe the Trump administration would proceed with the delivery, particularly because it would see its position as weakened if Moscow doesn't move along in response to these threats.
Russia's ex-president Dmitry Medvedev wrote on Telegram that delivering Tomahawks could end badly for everyone. How seriously should we take his words?
Well, you know, Medvedev has a track record of making incredible threats, and it's not something that I would take very seriously. But it is an indicator of how serious the Kremlin may see the military capabilities that Ukraine may receive as part of that delivery.
Yeah, often we hear when new weapons are introduced into this Ukraine war that these are often called game changers. But could it be different this time? Because usually they don't end up being game changers.
Well, not one single capability is going to be a game changer in any scenario, especially considering the extent of Russian military capabilities, the size of Russian territory and its economy. But it can be a catalyst for important change if provided in sufficient numbers and if used by Ukraine in combination with other capabilities that it has recently developed, including, say, Neptune cruise missiles or Flamingo long-range cruise missiles.
Okay. Mikhail Alekseev, professor of political science at San Diego State University. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Clint Reach is a senior defense researcher at the RAND Corporation. I asked him if Trump's hints that he might send Ukraine Tomahawk missiles are a threat to push Russia to negotiate or a genuine offer for Ukraine.
I think it's probably a little bit of both. Certainly, President Trump wants to get the attention of the Kremlin. He knows that long-range missiles are one way to do that. But of course, corresponding to that, these missiles would provide sort of a new and sort of sophisticated capability for the Ukrainians as well.
Explain a bit more on that. You know, how exactly will these weapons help Ukraine?
Well, they're extremely long range and extremely accurate, much more capable than anything the Ukrainians have right now. They can reach far inside Russia, all the way to the Urals, so they can touch Moscow, St. Petersburg, all kinds of critical targets within Russia. So it would introduce a new threat into the war. But there are many other questions about sort of the survivability of the system, the quantities of missiles, many other technical questions that sort of would determine how much of a threat we're really talking about.
And what else, in terms of weapons, does Ukraine need? And does it have enough, for example, air defenses to protect its, its power plants, for example, as winter approaches?
It could use as much air defenses as it can get. It doesn't have enough, which is why Russia continues to bombard Ukraine across the entire country, but especially the capital, Kyiv, hitting not only energy infrastructure, but also other civilian targets, military targets across the country that are valuable to Ukraine. So the more air defense, the better in that kind of environment. And also Russia continues to proliferate thousands of drones. And that just makes for even more demand for air defenses from the West.
That was Clint Reach, Senior Defense Researcher at the RAND Corporation.